Hello, everybody. I'm Odysseas. I'm a researcher at Common Prefix. Today, I'll be talking about censorship resistance in existing consensus protocols. This is a work we did at Common Prefix last year, and from this work, Pod came to life because we wanted to actually achieve the censorship resistance we didn't find in these existing consensus protocols. I would like to engage this question of censorship resistance through a widely used application of auctions. So, as it has been already established, auctions are being used by flashbots in a huge percent, and they're also really common in applications like Causa. Auction is a really simple primitive. It should be really easy to do it on chain. You have a block, and you can submit an intent to start an auction, and you will have a deadline until which participants of the auction should submit their bids, and then on the next blocks these bids will be included, and at some point the auction will end, and as long as you have consensus of the set of bids, it should be as simple as getting the maximum of these bids. Now, consensus protocols offer two things: safety and liveness. And this is what we should use to build an auction. So as long we have safety, we will agree on the bid set, and as long as we have liveness, the auction will conclude, and the blocks will be generated so that we can decide the winner. So if we have a liveness failure, something like that will happen. The auction will start, but the blocks will not be generated for some time, and at some point you will have the auction conclusion. This is not actually a bad case, but either way, the liveness is guaranteed by the consensus protocol. What would be the bad case in our case is if the blocks in between the start of the auction and the end of the auction are actually adversarial, where now we will not have a liveness failure, but instead the adversary can censor these blocks, and this will not be accountable actually. So although we see the consensus protocol making progress and transactions being included, behind the scenes, honest parties are getting their transactions censored. So it seems like liveness is not the only thing we need to do auctions. We need something like censorship resistance, and specifically short-term censorship resistance. So imagine that in Bitcoin, for example, we have the liveness guarantee that at some point an honest block will be generated, and this honest block will include the honest transactions, and all of these honest transactions will get on chain. But what we need to do the auction is whenever we have progress on our protocol, like on the next immediate block, we want the transactions to be included. Otherwise, it will be trivial for the adversary to win. It will just censor the higher transactions. It will look like we're making progress, but it will not. The honest transactions will not be included. So, with this in mind, we examine existing protocols and see how they manage on censorship resistance. So, the metrics we're using here is how much latency, how much time it's needed from a proposal of the transaction to get confirmed, how much time you need to actually go on with the protocol and start a new proposal, and how much for how many rounds you can censor a transaction. It's not necessary to get into details of how these protocols work. It's just the different types of protocol right now in existence. Let me remind you that this work is actually 1 year old, and maybe we have some alleviations by now, but this drives the main point. So in Tendermint, for example, you will have this free delta where it's not, you actually have to wait the whole period, and if every time a proposal happens, you have a malicious validator, then it can you must wait for all the malicious validators to go through for the transaction to be eventually included. Similar to hot stuff, although you're having some pipelining and maybe it's a responsive protocol, you still have to wait for an honest leader to appear. to actually guarantee the inclusion of transaction in the next block. But we see that this starts to change with DAG-based protocols where they're leaderless, but we have to pay this in a much higher latency. Actually, we can alleviate some of these problems by using extra gadgets like inclusion lists, using a DA layer, which may introduce some extra overhead on our latency, or by making clients reliably broadcast their transactions so that every validator gets this transaction, and that we have proof of this information dispersal. But and we can achieve zero censorship, but this still is too much price to pay. Like we're already paying the price of consensus, and we cannot still achieve censorship in a good fashion. And at this point, we follow the most simple protocol that exists. You just get some validators. One of them may be malicious, and the client just sends the transaction to all of these validators, and it receives back the attestations on this transaction. If it receives enough attestations, it will get a quorum of the transaction. This transaction will be confirmed. So we're not actually doing any more rounds of communication. We would like to achieve the censorship resistance and optimal latency only with this construction. And so we will not have consensus, but we will have the guarantees. We're looking on consensus using liveness and safety, but maybe we don't actually need them for auctions. So using this primitive, we can actually now indeed construct auctions. So the auctioneer will just read from these validators the transactions one by one. And actually, if we augment these transactions with timestamping, so each validator will sign the transaction and the timestamp, the auctioneer can know that at some point in time it has seen all of the transactions that should have been submitted for the auction. And this will be the bid set of the auctioneer. And just by taking the maximum of this bid set, it can conclude the auction. So the nice thing here is that the adversary cannot delay the confirmation of the honest transactions in any way, because you're guaranteed to get the attestations from the honest validators. So it's a leaderless protocol, and also you have the proof that the auctioneer has a proof that indeed it considered all of the transactions that were submitted in the specific time window. That's all from me. The main takeaway is that liveness is not always enough in order to achieve specific applications like auctions. And although consensus protocols do have safety and liveness, they do not support short censorship resistance out of the box. And it seems like one of the solutions should be leaderless protocols or other transaction inclusion solutions. And here is the QR to the overview that is on archive. Thank you.
Questions?
Sorry?
Was it based on transaction amount? Was it based on the recipients? Was it based on volume?
You mean what are the examples of censorship resistance we're having on real life blockchains?
What happened already in terms of censorship in blockchains? Or
yeah, the easiest way to do is that the easiest example is exactly on auctions, that you will bribe the existing validator to not include a higher bid, and you can win the auction by actually not submitting the highest bid. Although it seems that everything is working fine, there are transactions stuck in the mempool that do not make it on chain.
There is a very nice blog by Max Letterman.
I guess our other speaker from Pod Common Prefix suggested there's a blog post by Max Resnick on this or paper. Yeah.
Instead of going for a blockchain or like a layer that has short censorship resistance, could I instead design my auctions, for example, or my smart contracts, keeping in mind the liveness length? So to say that the auction has to last a long time and warn the users to submit their bids at least liveness time before the...
Yeah, I guess you can do this actually, yes, but you will deteriorate the the duration of the auction. So here, in this case, we can actually do auctions as fast as the network delay. Like you can, the client will only submit the transaction. The bids that the auctioneer will read streamingly from the validators, and past perfection, the property will have that you have seen all transactions actually comes as fast as the actual network delay of the at the given time. So, for example, because this is the brainchild of the grant that from Flashbots, you can do this type of auctions every time you want to generate a block, and you will not have to wait not even minutes. You can do it in seconds.